Hello everyone, welcome to a match preview of Ajax against Roma in the Europa League quarter-finals. It's getting to the serious end of the campaign now. Ajax come into this on an unbeaten run of 24 games. Unbelievable run, but now missing a key player or two. Much to preview, much to talk about. And we've also got Euro expert here, Alex, who's going to give us a lowdown on Roma. He's an expert on them, but also watches Ajax too. So we're looking forward to talking about this, that and the other. And more than just a bit of an Ajax preview, we've got a bit of a Roma touch to it too. First of all, Alex, how are you?
I'm doing very good, thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to cover one of the oldest, most boring teams in Europe against one of the more younger, exciting ones. But it's gonna be fun.
So I'm guessing we're both on Ajax's side then when it comes to Thursday.
Yeah, I am a little. I mean, Roma have got some fun players, but it's way more attractive, right? When Ajax go through, I want 18, 19 UCL vibes again. I want them beating United or something. That'd be the one.
Well, it's a big deal that Ajax have got this far, of course. But before we do start our preview, if you are a Football-Oranje fan and you haven't got one yet, and you would like to support us in what we do, we've got Football-Oranje wristbands still on sale. We're nearly at Euro 2020. This is a bit of a corny way of showing you. If you want a proper link and a proper picture, please see the YouTube description. There's a link there to how to buy one. Alex has got one too. And also, and also if you head on to the Twitter page as well, Football-Oranje, it's pinned to the top, a link how to get one. Get one before it's not too late. We're near at the Euros. And if you do buy one, it supports us what we do on our website. Right, so, I mean, Alex, you've been watching Roma way more than me. How are they getting on this season? Then we'll talk about Ajax a little bit later. I mean, at the time of recording, fresh from watching Hidden Vein 1, Ajax 2, got some talking points in that as well. Roma coming to this, though, are they in peak Roma form? I always see them around the European places, particularly around the top four recently in Serie A. How's it going for them this season?
So Roma are very weird. We'll put it that way. So they're in like the top 7-6 teams in Italy, right? But they haven't
top then now.
Not the top, but they've not beaten anyone, I believe, in the top 8 all season. They've not won any game against the top 8. It seems they kind of just have this thing where in the big games they seem to fall apart a little. But as well with Roma is it feels like everything's a side of two halves, right? You've got they're doing well against the fodder in Serie A, but struggling against the bigger teams. Their attack is really fun, despite being ancient, and their defense is like hilarious and all over the place. And yesterday they drew 2-2 with Sassuolo, which did okay, but yeah, watching them recently, I know their highlight probably so far was breezing past a really good Shakhtar Donetsk side in the round of 16. So Roma are kind of coming into this, I guess, maybe a little cloudy, because also I should touch on their manager, Paulo Fonseca. Even though he's doing, in my opinion, one of the better jobs he can do with this squad, the rumours, a lot of heavy rumours right now are suggesting that Maurizio Sarri's actually lined up and he's been offered other jobs, but he's waiting in Italy and he's waiting on the Roma job to become free in the summer. So it feels like it feels like there's an air of inevitability to it. It looks like feels like it's about to fall apart, but it's not. So very unpredictable coming into this tie, I think.
So it sounds like this is a great opportunity for Ajax to get to semi-finals then, and that Roma aren't this big, indestructible Italian opponent, which they can seem to be on occasion. And when you look at the last 8 teams in the Europa League, there aren't too many opponents left to be feared. Roma, I thought, coming out of the hat with one of those. But when there was a poll on Twitter, I think over 2/3, and it wasn't our Dutch football fans either, it was Europa League fans, 2/3 thought that Ajax would get through against Roma. Are they the favourites?
I genuinely, I know it's a bit of a cop-out, but I think it's a little even, purely because, I mean, we'll touch on Ajax in a second, but Roma, so I touched on their defence. Their defence is quite like they have a lot of comical errors, you'll find, throughout their games, but I'm just getting the stats up now in the background. Like, they've scored 46 goals but conceded 40. I think that might be 48 and 42 now. And I think a big reason why they concede goals as well is their goalkeeper. They're the Italian Chelsea. Michael, I'm not sure if you and your viewers are fans of XG, But Roma have had
sometimes and sometimes not.
So if anyone doesn't know, I'll very quickly say expected goal is just simply a measure of the quality of chance, right? So the stats suggest that Roma have conceded the quality of chance to concede 30 goals. But they've conceded, well, at the time this was done, they conceded 39. So they've basically conceded 10 more goals than they're meant to. And it's because their goalkeepers, it's Lopez and Morante, they're just dreadful in goal. So I guess to summarize it a bit more of Ajax, there is definitely, I think, a really big chance that Ajax are going to go to Roma, both legs, and score against them. It's just a measure of their attacking players. So there might be a longer answer to this question because the attack is where Ajax should be worried. I mean, obviously you've got the older players like Dzeko, 35, Pedro, 33, Mkhitaryan, 32. It does raise a lot of eyebrows. But one interesting thing, all three of those players are both-footed. And you can see that in every game they play. They're really unpredictable when defenses come against them. But the main man is Lorenzo Pellegrini. I think he's a name that gets thrown around quite a lot. 24-year-old Italian, and he's about 6'2". In 26 games, he's scored four goals and had 6 assists. And he's been in the team of the week in Italy 7 times. And yeah, he's really lethal. What's worrying about him, I think, is he's very lethal both inside the box, like bursting into it from centre attacking midfield, or just having pot shots from range. And he's not the sort of player like, I guess, like what Ziyech got accused of for being for Ajax, where he might have too many long shots. Pellegrini's long shots are really accurate, and you find that in some of the goals he scores. He's very, very dangerous. So I think, and he's got the 5th most shot creating actions in Italy, which is very lethal as well. So to summarise there, took a detour answer. Ajax, I think, are favourites to score the goals, but they need to be wary of this Roma attack because it is very deadly. And while Ajax's defence are maybe a little more secure than Roma's, it's set up to for both teams to think they can go into this and score.
Well, that's certainly promising from an entertainment point of view. I watched Ajax beat Heerenveen today 2-1, and there were some plus points, but also probably more negative points just coming into this Roma tie. The first was that before he even kicked off, their goalkeeper Stekelenburg, who was already second choice but had been playing pretty well, was injured, and Kjell Serpen, their third goalkeeper, young, decent, but has a mistake in him, started the game instead, had an okay game. And he will most likely play again on Thursday. That the news before recording this was that we don't know yet whether Stekelenburg will be fit or not. But his calm head is something that I would miss for Ajax. What's more, you've got Dave Blind, who's already missing because of his injury and Netherlands duty. Again, a big one. And it really showed today the lack of that sort of leader in the centre of defence. Today for Ajax, it was Martinez and Alvarez, 2 South Americans in central defence. And it just didn't. They didn't look after Henk Veerman, a good striker, a tall striker. He won so many flick-ons today, bringing all the Heerenveen attacking players. But that against Roma, that they're going to be punished a lot more often. There were some good chances for Heerenveen today, but they were a team who were languishing in mid-table and aren't really achieving just as late. But Veerman won so many headers today, and that just makes me think that I haven't watched Edin Dzeko enough in my life. I know that he's not just a tall pole, but he does win headers, and I think that's where Roma are going to probably exploit some of these weaknesses for Ajax. I also think that they've got a bit of a soft underbelly at the moment. I don't know what it is. It's just, it doesn't feel as though the main chance is being created out wide. It feels as though there's pace and a height issue in the middle of the defence. But that shouldn't be happening with technical players such as Ajax. And that there should be someone tall, Alvarez, right, who should be winning these headers against a tall striker. Didn't really happen today. And it makes me worry against a side like Roma. I'm sure you'll be able to fill me on even more, Alex, about the kind of strengths they've got in attack against the weaknesses that Ajax might have in defence. Because it's not their first choice back four that will play.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting to touch on Henk Veerman, because he's one of those players, you know, where you have a favourite player that you watch maybe like 3 games of and you think, yeah, he's amazing. Henk Veerman, every time I watch him, I love him. And Dzeko's probably the premium version of him. So I would be worried. I would be worried that Dzeko maybe can cause Ajax some issues. And I think Roma, they play a back 3, and most of their attacks, they kind of come from crosses, not necessarily donking on Dzeko's head, but they're very good at overwhelming and stretching a defense. And then one of the wing backs, Leandro Spinazzola or Bruno Perez, usually Rick Karsdorp, I think the former Feyenoord guy, he's suspended for this tie, so he won't be in, which is quite good because he's been very good for
It's
Roma.
the first leg, isn't it? But not the second leg. Because, Karsdorp's been playing pretty well and was touted to come into Netherlands international duty, but did in the end. He was all right with Feyenoord last season, but I wouldn't say that he would have deserved a starting spot at Roma. But I'm glad to see that he's obviously developed back into that.
Yeah, it's quite weird. I was looking. I think he was at Lille as well, and his career has just suddenly started to take a bit of an uptick. So I think it's good for Ajax that he's out. But yeah, Roma's attacking sort of style is to overwhelm the team, fly men forward because they're midfielders as well. Virtu and Villa, they're not very defensive minded. They just all overwhelm the defense and kind of play these low balls across the box. And sometimes there's a wing back arriving at the far post. And there's one thing as well, it's a bit of a unique threat just to touch on. So their left back, Spinazzola, as the Italian first team left back as well. He's left wing back, but he's right footed. And when you first look at that, you think, Michael, I know you live in the UK. I know you're a Netherlands fan, but if you managed to watch England last season with Kieran Trippier playing at left wing back, you get that vibe. You're thinking it's not functioning well, but they make it work. He's actually really dangerous, Spinazzola. He's got 2 goals and 4 assists from that position, and he's created 9 big chances. So it's something else just to worry about. And I mean, you spoke about the aerial threat. A really weird stat here. Spinazzola, left wing back, has won 91% of his aerial duels, which is stupendously good. I assume most of them against tiny wingers, but yeah, it's for a height perspective as well. Roma have definitely got an advantage. Most of their players are like 6'1" or 6'2", so maybe from corners as well. Ajax might want to be wary of that too.
Yeah, I think the aerial threat's going to be another problem for Ajax again, and they're just going to have to rely upon winning the second balls and whatever it is, and just dealing with that because it's not something they deal with very well. They haven't really all season, and didn't in the last season. I don't think. And you've got Perskers, you've got Alvarez, two good centre backs, very tall ones, but they're not commanding enough in the air yet in their careers. And we had a comment from Matai, who's actually watching along live. One of very few who is watching along live right now. He's a bit unannounced to do something like this. But he hopes that Alvarez is back in midfield against Roma. But I'm worried about our short defenders. Yeah, it's going to be an issue. And Alvarez can't really play in midfield just because there's not enough options in defence unless you put Skurs there. I anticipate that it will be Serpent in goal. And then you're looking at a back four that was similar to the one played against Heerenveen today. That there was Timber right back. It's probably going to be Martinez and Alvarez again at centre back, and Tagliafico, of course, at left back. In midfield, you're probably going to see Gravenberch, Klaassen again. But Kudus was rested today after an international break, so I imagine he'll probably start against Roma. And then an attack, you imagine it would be Tadic starting as a striker again, because he has done that enough times in Europe in the absence of Haller, unless Ten Hag wants to play Robbie instead, but probably will bring him off the bench. And then wingers, you're looking at Anthony and Neres, but Anthony didn't play today, Neres has played instead. It's kind of easy to predict the squad when there's a few players out for Ajax, but Ten Hag does like to keep the cards close to his chest, that's for sure. But I wonder how he'll go against Roma and whether he thinks he's got a strong enough team to try and beat them. Because when you play them at home first, you've got to try and get that win, haven't you?
Yeah, I was going to ask this. Can Haller be... This is purely coming from Football-Oranje. Like, I know you can re-register your squad for every set of games. Can Haller be registered for this tie?
No, I'm afraid not. He once it's for knockouts, that's it. Done. It's such a bad error from the technical team at Ajax. Someone just didn't put it in a spreadsheet or whatever. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that could be quite costly. But then again, I think you mentioned Anthony and Anthony Tadic and Neres there. I think they could cause some issues against the defenders, because something else to throw out about Roma.
It's pacey and technical, that front three.
Yeah, but as well with Roma, though, their defenders, so Smalling, Cristante, Ibanez is missing this tie, I think. But their centre-backs, none of them actually win over like 50% of their tackles. And that's including like the more simpler ones. So I imagine their like tackles for each dribblers is really low. So I do think you've got your Ajax are equipped with like Anthony and Neres, and I think they could cause some issues against Roma. And I want to see Anthony do that because I never got to catch Ajax in the last tie. But has he started performing in Europe yet? Because I know Michael was very complaining about Anthony the last time me and him spoke. Has he started performing in Europe yet?
Okay, I just got this vision in my head of, I can't remember which game it was, and if it was the one against Midtjylland in the Champions League, but Anthony just throwing himself to the floor, pretending he was injured, and all the players just telling him to get up, his own players and his own team. He's still got some maturing to do, I think. He's not going to fill the void left by Zia, that's for sure, but he's definitely someone who's still magical and will still produce moments. If you put him in the spot there, but I didn't watch Ajax play young boys, and that's the thing, that I haven't seen him in the last couple of Europa League games. Yeah, I'm not going to answer that one because I'm not too sure. If anyone's watching live and wants to comment on it, they'll go for it. But I think he's someone who's still got that magical ability, and he's still someone who's growing as a player. Maybe he was rested against Hedenveen instead of Neres getting rested. So maybe they'll both play together. We'll see. I think someone else just commented here about Jurgen Timber being better than Skurs. Timber's going to play it right back, I think. I don't think he's going to play at centre back. And again, it's just this. I think it's too big of a game to play at centre back. If you know what I mean, in Europe. Maybe in the Eredivisie you will. But I know what's coming about Allaire playing pretty poorly in the Eredivisie, but I think he's been playing really well in the Eredivisie. He hasn't been at his best, but he's sort of been, it looks a bit nonchalant, but he's someone who throws himself around and he is a threat in the box, and Ajax scored goals because of him. He scored 7 already since joining in January. That's pretty good. And he'll be missed in the Europa League quarterfinal. But I think it's a good thing in a way because Allaire doesn't get too tired from the amount of games, and it allows someone to just Tadic play up front instead. That's not always a bad thing in Europe. Yeah,
and there's also, I guess there's another element to it. I mean, this is coming from just hearing West Ham fans' criticism of it, which, to be fair, they always criticise people. But Allaire, I guess, is a little less mobile in a way than Tadic. And Ajax, I mean, well, obviously Ajax are a lot more of a pressing side. And that could come into play, actually, because one big reason why Roma have struggled against bigger teams is they're very weak under a press at times. Even though they play a back three, so you think they should be able to play from the back well. There's been a couple of games against, I think it's like the likes of Inter and Lazio, where they can't get out of their own final third, they're only first third really, and they lose the ball to teams that like meet them high and meet them intensely. So maybe if you have a smaller, well, not necessarily smaller, but a more mobile front three, Tadic, Neres, Anthony, or whoever, and you've got the midfield pushing up from Ten Hag, if he gets the press right, I think that's also another way Ajax can potentially catch Roma out.
And I think that let's not forget Ryan Halvenberg again. He's just a player who we just quickly forget, but he's someone who's so young. He's a teenager just playing in Ajax midfield. He will cause Roma problems too because he's just showing that he can step it up again and again. It doesn't matter who the opposition is. He's been playing pretty well, no matter who he's been playing against this season. I wonder whether he could come into it against Roma and make a difference.
He might be able to be fair. I mean, Gravenberch is someone, like, I'm yet to see the magic in, but at the same time, anyone who gets picked by Frank de Boer under the age of 25, I have to assume must be too good to ignore, because there's no way someone as conservative as him would pick him. But no, yeah, I've seen Gravenberch's numbers. They're pretty excellent. I do think, I think in this tie, I think the midfield is kind of evenly matched. I think it will be a lot more about if Roma get out and catch Ajax short at the back. Because if they're able to get more directly at them, able to feed Mkhitaryan and players like that, then Ajax can have issues. But if Ajax are able to stop them playing out, then that could be where they really succeed. I guess the one thing there is Gravenberch is going to probably have to be at his defensive best in a sense, because the Roma midfielders quite small and quite technical. They're not very concerned with their defensive play. But like Virtu and Villa, they're quite good at dribbles and they might be able to get up the pitch well. So they have to, Gravenberch and Klaassen will have to stop those players turning and causing issues, I think, from them.
I'm an Aston Villa fan. I've actually got my shirt underneath here somewhere. Hey.
There we go.
We used to watch Virtu play and didn't think he was that effective as a midfielder. Just a bit of a little aside here.
Yeah.
But how is he getting on? And is he someone that could stop Ajax in midfield?
He is someone who is living off the fact of being a set piece taker. He's hit 10 goals and 2 assists this season. Yeah. And you look at that and you think, blimey, this guy's amazing. And then you realise 5 have come from penalties. And I think like 1 or 2 from free kicks. But he's doing okay. Like he's nothing like spectacular. But he's someone you don't really want near goal in a sense. Even though he's getting these good set piece chances, he's a really good striker of the ball. And I think that's kind of in essence a lot of Roma. They're really good. You don't want to give them chances because they're quite lethal in front of goals. They're almost like a discount Bayern Munich. You know, they're very lethal in attack, but defensively they're not so much. If that's one comparison to make.
Now, Alex, we've been talking for a little while already in this, and I think we could talk all night about football. But I want to get some predictions from you for the game and the tie as a whole. We've got a couple of comments still to put on screen, and including one about the BeNe League, which might be interesting to get your viewpoint on just at the end of this. But what are you thinking for this? You watch both teams on a regular basis. Do you think that Ajax can make the most of this home tie, and do you think they'll get through it over the 2 legs?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. I like
football's a thing of luck, isn't it, at the end of the day? So it's going to swing either way. And I just wondered who your money would be on the night.
Yeah, I am going to. Which home ties first? Actually, is it Ajax v Roma first?
Yeah, I will just double check while she's talking, but I'm pretty sure Ajax are home first.
Okay, well, going off other European ties, Ajax tend to do better when they play at home first and then away the second leg. That's based on nothing but my biased memory. I'm going to back Ajax to go through overall, and I think in the ties, I think at home they'll draw 1-1 with Roma, and then at Roma they will win 2-1. But yeah, overall, I think Ajax has got what it takes to get through this, and I think Ten Hag's a really good coach. So I think he'll see the errors that I've spoken about with Roma, and probably knows into a far better level, and I reckon he's going to expose them quite well.
Interesting. Well, Ten Hag's got a bit of a, like I said earlier, he keeps cards close to his chest, and he will probably do something a bit interesting on the night, something a little bit off, something that might seem a bit strange, but I think he'll do it in the best interest of getting Ajax through. And I think I might go for something similar to yourself. I think the first leg will be a draw, and then I think that Ajax might take their chances with away goals in the second leg, whether that's like a 2-2 after a 1-1 first leg or something. I think it's going to be very close. I don't think Ajax are going to just win 3-0 in Amsterdam or anything like that. I also don't think it's going to be a disaster, which could happen like this, because I think that when Ajax played Heerenveen, they weren't at their best. It was almost like there was a few cracks starting to show with a few players out injured, chances being conceded, 24 games unbeaten. You think it's got to come to an end really soon. Could come against Roma, but they might also. I think they might just get through this one. And in the semi-finals, then it's a different story. But let's see how they get on against Roma. It's a chance that as you've just been describing, it sounds like a chance they should really be taking. And yeah, I think it's going to be entertaining. I don't think we're going to see any 0-0s in this. I think both teams are just a little bit too open for that. If you say there's a few errors in the Roma defence, I just can't see it happening.
Yeah, I agree. I always hesitate with this because I feel like every time I say this game's going to be 3 or 4 all, it's always 0-0. But yeah, these two teams are set up to score against each other and let in goals quite a lot, especially the goalkeeping thing. Like neither of these teams have got a top-class goalie in goal, so I'll be shocked if it's low scoring.
We've got a couple of comments put on screen. If you've been watching this in a couple of days after we recorded it, please leave a comment on YouTube and we'll be sure to reply to you. Now, a couple of things just extra about the defence. We have this one here, Martinez and Timber with a centre-back duo against Young Boys, and they didn't concede. I put out a comment back to me saying that Timber probably shouldn't play at centre-back in a game such as this. I still stand by that he should probably start at right-back, though. And another one here, that if I control Roma like they did against Young Boys, they should be favourites. Yeah, I think they're slight favourites. We'll see how it goes in the night. And lastly, just to get your opinion, Alex, as you are a Euro expert, you do watch some of the Belgian leagues, well as the Dutch league.
Yes.
Talking a bit about the BeNe League. It was a random comment, something to do with our Roma match. But just before we go, this might interest some people. What do you think? I'm pretty torn. I've given my viewpoints about this in the podcast before on Football-Oranje. We were asked about it over the past, how many years have we been doing this? 4, 5 years, something like that. And it always comes up. It always seems to happen, but it's getting closer and closer because there's more genuine reason to do it. Belgian teams need more money. They're sort of leeching off Dutch teams to go and do it. And I don't think Dutch teams are as keen to do a merger. I also think that history, it comes into play with this. it's quite traditionalist point of view, but I just think that there's not as much appeal if you have like a mid-table Belgian team playing Ajax. That's less appealing than say Ajax playing away at Utrecht. So there's a lot more history to that. There's a lot more credit to that. So yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what we'd all want to see is the dream version of this come correct, where you can preserve the history and you can preserve the ties like Ajax v Utrecht, but you get added competition, you get added money, and you get added things like that. There's a lot of different points. I mean, I don't know how long I've got, but I've got a lot to say on it because it's a topic that I've been interested in for a while. Because I guess with the BeNe, there's been a few different points that I've heard raised. So, for example, in the Ajax second tier, I think it's second tier, you have like Ajax, Eredivisie second tier, you've got Ajax B, or like my third tier as well, PSV B, which is like, I guess from a competition point of view, you'd want that a bit more stacked. But on the other hand, I get what you mean from the Belgium sort of mid-table thing. This would definitely benefit Belgium more than Ajax. But I do think there is interesting battles to be had because, as you said, I actually do watch the Belgium league. I've watched quite a bit of it this season, probably more than like La Liga or something like that. And their football's quite contrasting to the Eredivisie. I know some Belgian fans, you might have heard this in your days, but I know some Belgian fans call the Eredivisie carpet football because their idea of Eredivisie is passing on the ground, where Belgium is a lot more physical, but there is a lot of talent in there. And I think there's lots of little bits and bobs to figure out. Like, how would you do a second tier, for example? Do you merge the two second tiers? Because that's what
would be good. That's what I think they should do. But it sounded like to me that they're not going to do that. And I just don't get how relegation would work, if there is any.
Yeah, and it's also like, how will the league work? Does it mean one Eredivisie team? Oh, it does mean like one Eredivisie and one Belgian team must come up? Or is it whoever's the best comes up? It's interesting. I guess I kind of like to. I'd want them to merge the two tiers if they can make it financially work, and then you have the best teams come up. And I think it would matter as well how many teams are in the league, because even though the Eredivisie is definitely more competitive than the Belgian league, because obviously I'll watch the Eredivisie at times like Heerenveen or Heerenveen. They're a team I actually really like even from Chidera Duke when he joined Heerenveen last season. Player who really interests me. And you look at them and you think, well, why are they mid-table? This is a quality side. Like you'd want, but then at the same time in the Eredivisie, you've got teams like VV Venlo, and who lose 13-0 to Ajax, which is such a massive gap. And like even ADO Den Haag, I know they're having a bit more of a down season than usual, but it would be interesting to see if it was balanced. Like in my head, I guess, imagine you're Ajax and instead of playing PSV Feyenoord and then Heerenveen and then FC Twente, and then ADO Den Haag, you get to play Anderlecht, Ghent, then PSV, Feyenoord, Club Brugge, Royal Antwerp. Because I think one thing to hit on as well, just from a Belgian perspective, there isn't as many top teams in Belgium. I think the only real one is Club Brugge. They're the only team that are on an Ajax level. But the level below that, there's a lot more. Whereas I think in Holland, it's like you have Ajax, PSV, and then AZ Alkmaar and Feyenoord, and then the rest are kind of a bit lower. Whereas in Belgium, it feels like there's Club Brugge, and then there's Antwerp, Anderlecht, Ghent, Genk, all fighting for that second spot. They're all on that sort of...
I get that vibe too, actually, just looking at the league and looking at the players. I agree with you because it feels like underneath sort of your top 3-4, that's quite thin.
Yeah.
You've got Utrecht and Vitesse are good, but don't do it consistently enough. And then below that, Groningen, they're okay. And then below that, again, it just gets not quite as good at high quality. I think that a few years ago that was a bit different, but it feels as though the tops got better in the Eredivisie. I mean, look at Ajax, right? In European competitions have been amazing. PSV, pretty high quality with players. RZ, amazing the way they've developed, and they've got so much better. But there's teams lower down the table that are not as high quality anymore as they used to be. Yeah, and I think that's the concern, I think.
Yeah, and I think but the thing is with the Eredivisie as well, it's definitely on the upward trajectory. Like I know the appointment hasn't gone to plan, but Roger Schmidt arriving at PSV, that's a top European coach with a very different mindset than the average Dutch coach coming in to have a grand plan, thinking he can, like, choosing the Eredivisie when he probably could have chose a Premier League team or another Bundesliga team. Like, the Eredivisie is on the up. But at the same time, Belgium is on the up as well. You had Royal Antwerp beating Tottenham. And I do quite a bit on Belgium. As I said, there's a lot of interesting projects in Belgium. I think if you could merge it so the teams that are eliminated like fully to the second tier are like VV Venlo and ADO Den Haag or like Valvik, those teams going to the second tier while pushing Groningen to say you're in danger of relegation, you're going to have to up yourself and stay in it.
Of course.
That then it works. If you make it a closed thing or anything like that, basically, I guess the idea is treat it like a national league and not a miniature European Super League.
Yeah,
I think that's
what we need to improve. And I know there's a couple of comments just to add to this. So there's someone actually voting for it, and then someone voting against it. But their idea here is actually a good one of putting the Belgian and Dutch teams together in a cup competition, which is something Mike mentioned already on Football-Oranje. And it's also something that I know many people have mentioned before, Dutch people and also people who speak English and like Dutch football. This idea of a cup competition between Dutch and Belgian teams, I would have thought was a way forward. You just would need to figure out the European place that you give away for that. You can't give it to one over the other. You would have to figure out how it would be fair. But once you figure that out, surely that is the way forward. And something like that could be a starter rather than just delving straight into this league.
Listening to that, I think the idea of a cup competition, the worry is it doesn't put in the same amount of traction. But I think the difference would be if it was given away a Europa League spot, I don't think it'd be nearly as successful. But if UEFA, I know this is a big ask, but if UEFA to say, we'll help set this cup competition up and we'll give a bonus Champions League spot away, because I know the competition will be under review in 2024 as well. If they can do a Champions League spot for it, now that would be something that a lot of people from Europe would tune in to, because I think that would be giving an extra opportunity to those teams. Because I guess the essence of it all is Belgium and Holland do want extra opportunities. Netherlands do want another Champions League spot, or they want another Europa League spot, and the same with Belgium especially. So if there's a way of giving it to those teams without damaging the more domestic nature of the competitions and the lower leagues, the lower clubs from those leagues, then I think that would be the way to work. And maybe a cup competition is the way to go. But I do think as well, I mean, I know maybe it's a bit of a far-fetched thing, but I do feel like it's going to end up happening, just the amount of talk around it. And I think there are some people somewhere thinking they're going to make a lot of money out of this. And even though there's valid criticism, of it, like how it could damage the lower teams, I don't think those people with the big money and the big houses in the big cities are thinking of that. They're thinking of how do we boost the reputation of these two nations. I think that maybe it will end up happening.
We'll have to see. Now, that is a big tangent away from Ajax against Roma. But if you were just tuned in thinking, well, I thought this was a Ajax Roma preview, then go back to the start. Start again. But just to find a point, the person who asked the question said there's good points of view and it'll be a challenge both leagues. Yeah, it will be a challenge if it does happen. But there's someone out there thinking, this is a great idea. We need to make this work. So, Alex, thank you for your time. And as always, it's a pleasure to have you on. I think it might be the second time we ever had you on, but we'll be delighted to have you again. We'll try and do a match reaction to the Ajax Roma game from both legs. We'll see what time we've got. But we could do that as the importance of it is for Dutch teams and the significance for Ajax this season, of course. I think we'll do something for that. And finally, just to remind you, if you would like to still purchase one, we still have Football-Oranje wristbands. You can click on the link in the YouTube description, or it's pinned to our Twitter page, Football-Oranje, and get yourself one. Get yourself one before it's too late. It's nearly Euro 2020. And as we always say, it supports what we do at Football-Oranje. So thank you for watching if you were watching live, and thank you for watching if you were watching a few days after. Maybe it's the day of the game, Ajax against Roma. Leave your predictions in the comments as to what you're thinking for the game. And thank you for watching.